Hello and welcome to this tutorial, and in this tutorial we'll learn how we could create our own thread so as to avoid the crash of an application. So in the previous tutorial what we have done is that we have purposely made the application to crash, and we were successful in crashing the application. But in this tutorial we are going to make the use of threads, and we want to make our application run more efficiently without crashing. So if you have a look at this console right here, you could see that after running the application on the emulator, we got this errors like the application may be doing too much work on its main thread. This error or this statement here specifies that we had created a lot of load on our main thread. So in this tutorial what we are going to do is that apart from the main thread, we'll be having one more thread which is going to have this code right here, and it is going to execute it on another thread, and on our main thread we are going to have this text view or the basic process which we want to execute. So in that case our application won't crash. So now let's go ahead and learn how to create a new thread. So you need to go into your main activity.java class, and the first thing which you'll need to do is that you need to create a runnable interface, and a runnable interface is nothing but it is going to contain the code which we want to execute inside the other thread. So we go right here inside the click my button and we create a runnable interface. So we type runnable and let's name this as R. So we type runnable R equals new runnable, and it is automatically going to add some code in it for us, but make sure that you have a semicolon right here or else it is going to give you an error. And as you could see, there is this public void run, and this is basically going to contain the code which we want to run. So if we go down here, as you could see, this is the code which we want to execute in our new thread. So we simply cut this, we go inside the run and we paste it over here. So now once we are done with this, we have successfully created the runnable interface. Now the next thing which we need to do is that we need to create an actual thread, and we need to start a new thread so that this bit of code right here is going to get executed. So we go down here and we type thread, and let's name this thread as my thread equals new thread. And now once we have this, we go ahead and start this thread. So the simple method to start the thread would be type in my thread and use the start method. So we simply give a dot operator and we type start. So once this is done, our thread is going to start. Now once this is done, the next thing which you need to do is that you have this piece of code right here, this block of code right here which you need to execute. You need to make sure that you don't cut and paste this code inside this runnable, and that is because the code inside the runnable is going to get executed in the background, and we cannot stick in the code inside this, and we cannot use this code inside this, and that is because this code is related to our interface, and that is, it has the my text, it has a button. So instead of just cutting and pasting the code here, we create a new thing which is called as an handler, and the handler is going to actually contain this code. So in order to create a handler, we go right here inside the main activity and we create a handler. So we type handler and let's name this as handler equals new handler. And once we have this handler, the next thing which we need to do is that we need to import the handler. So we type import android.os.handler, and we also import a message. So we type import android.os.message. Now as you could see, we already have a handler imported over here, so we delete this handler, and that is because we will import the handler from the android.os package. So there are basically two handlers, and the one which we want is going to lie in the android.os.handler package. Now once we have the handle with us, the next thing which we do is that we add override methods to it. So we press alt insert to use code completion. We click on this override methods right here, and we are going to select this handle message method. and this handle right here is going to actually lie inside your main thread, or the by default thread which is created during the execution. So now in the main thread we want to stick in this code right here, which is the code which we use to change the text view. So we simply cut this code, go inside the handler, we delete this code right here, and we paste the code which we have just dragged from here. So once this is done, we are done with creating the handler. Now the next thing which we need to do is that we need to call this handler. So we go inside this click my button right over here, and we go exactly here in the run method, or the public void run. So we go exactly here and we call the handler method and send an empty message to it. So we type handler dot send empty message and pass in 0 to it. Now once this is done, we are done with the code. So now let's check how our application performs when we use the thread. So before running the application, let's go ahead and revise the things which we have done once again. So basically what we have done is that instead of having the single path of execution or having a single thread, which is our main thread, we have created our new thread. And we have created our new thread by introducing the runnable interface. So this is our runnable interface right here. And inside the runnable interface, we have pasted the code which we want to execute on a new thread. Now once the runnable interface is set, the next thing which we did was that we have created this thread right here. And one thing which we forgot is that whenever we are creating this thread right here, we need to pass in the runnable interface object over here. So inside this new thread, we pass in R, and that is because R is basically our runnable interface object. Now once we pass this into this function right here, which is creating a new thread, we simply go ahead and start this thread, and it is going to start a new thread for us, which is going to be completely separate from the main thread which we have created. Now one more thing which you'll need to remember is that this code right here, which was earlier present over here, should actually not be present inside the new thread, and that is because we are going to make it run on our main thread. So basically we have currently two paths of execution. The first path is going to be this wait function right here, which is going to be executed on a new thread, and this function is basically going to get executed on our main thread, or the default thread which our application is going to create. So we stick the code inside the handle message or the handler, and the handler is going to get attached with the main thread which we are executing. So now once we are done with the code, we save it and we execute it on our emulator. Now as you could see, our application is up and running on the emulator, and we have the text here hello, and we have a button click me. So we simply click it, and we could click it multiple number of times, unlike the previous case. So we could click this button a multiple number of times and your application is not going to crash. So basically that's how we use thread in order to make our application more efficient, and we make it to run various processes without interfering with each other, so that each process gets executed in a much more smoother manner, and we are able to execute multiple processes at once. So basically the major application of threads is while you are creating a multiple process application like games. So while you're playing games, multiple processes are getting executed, they are running in the background, but we won't be able to see them. So that's how you create a basic thread, and you could go into more depth into threads by creating multiple number of threads. So that's it for this tutorial, and I hope you guys understood how to use threads to make our application run more smoothly. So thank you very much for watching this tutorial, and I'll see you guys in the next tutorial. Thank you.